Section 1, Chicago. Chapter 1, The Beginning. My Genesis. I was born November 18, 1981, on the south side of Chicago, Illinois. From the very beginning, I was faced with the challenge of life due to the fact that I was born premature. Before the 1970s, the majority of babies born too early died. However, in the 1980s, babies that were born premature survived as medical technology advanced. I was so small, I was told I could fit in the palm of one hand. At some point during the early stages of my life, I had difficulties that led to me having a surgical procedure for a tracheotomy. I was a sickly child, and this no doubt caused my mother stress. She suffered from something later called postpartum depression. The doctor tried to encourage her to see me, but she refused. As a result, the doctor pressed her hard with the threat to have me put up for adoption if she would not see me. She then gave in and took me into her arms. She could not bear the alternative option. I am the second child of my mother, who previously had my sister. I grew up in a single-parent home, and my mother did all she could in raising me. Some people will make the claim that she spoiled me rotten, but the truth is, she was just a very protective mother. You must understand, my mother was no fool. She had seen and experienced many things that made her go about life the way she did. I recall a time in her efforts to provide a place of residency. She rented a place out only to realize the place wasn't safe to live in. From the outward appearance, it looked good until the snow came. Something was wrong with the ceiling, and snow came through the roof. She took the landlord to court, and she won. On another occasion, I remember us living in a basement apartment, and one night I heard something in my closet. The next morning, I told my mother, and she investigated it, only to find a huge hole in the wall. It was a rat hole. It took a little time for us to move, but we moved again, and finally, she found a nice place for us to live. My mom went through a lot, but she never gave up in what she set out to do, which was to provide a decent home for us. There were times early on I would ask questions about my dad, but it wasn't often because I wouldn't get any answers. I knew very little about my dad, but there were many times I would find myself wondering about him. Who was he? Why wasn't he here with us? What happened to Dad? However, as I got older, things started to come out about him that affected my life very much. As a child, I had an internal struggle and hard time. There were feelings of a lack of value and the growth of a rebellious spirit that had developed within me. I was angry. It was only after many years I came to understand that when a child is in a single-parent situation, it has side effects. Some of the side effects are low self-esteem, loneliness, lack of confidence, lack of discipline, and a lack of support. There is a pain that comes from not having both parents, the father and the mother. Researchers have made the claim that boys are affected more adversely than girls, especially when the only available parent is the mother, the bump. But I guess that's just an opinion because I've heard that girls are just as affected. Regardless, I had an awesome mom. There were times that I felt my dad's absence, and the void of not having him around was devastating for me and hindered my personal development. I believe that a father's leadership and example play a vital role in the family arrangement. Some may say or act as if a single parent home has the same benefits as having both parents, but I don't believe that. The fact of the matter is that a traditional family circle has the best outcome because of how it was designed. Husband, wife, and children. This is the oldest institution on earth and plays a successful role in human society. I never blame my mother for my dad's absence. I blame my dad because he failed to do what he was expected to do as a man. He proved to be a selfish man. He loved no one, it seemed. The story of how my parents met goes as follows. On her way home from school, Mom walked past a barbershop on 35th and Prairie. Dad approached her and they started talking. Then sometime after this, they started a relationship. However, she did not know about Dad's player background. He didn't tell Mom that he was already married to another woman. One day, at the housing projects on State Street, Mom ran into the other woman and found out that they both were pregnant by my dad. He and his wife already had a daughter. So once the truth came out about my dad, things between him and my mom were never the same. Dad's reputation preceded him, and according to street associates and family members, women loved him, but men hated him. And this was supposedly known as the Robinson Curse. Subheading: a distant father. When I was a young boy, Dad would make sudden appearances. I have nothing but bad memories of Dad, and one of those memories have caused me to have a repeated nightmare. It goes as follows. I was a little boy, probably no more than 5 years of age, and I was standing in the doorway of my mother's room on the second floor of my grandmother's house, and I heard my mom screaming, and Dad was on top of her, holding her down on the bed with one hand and striking her in the face with the other. Then my sister and Grandma fought him off her. My sister punched and scratched him multiple times, and Grandma gave him a blow to the head with a 2x4 piece of wood, which stopped him right in his tracks. As Grandma and her 2x4 pursued her daughter's attacker, he stumbled down the stairs to get away and out of the house. My dad was physically abusive to my mother. He didn't care that I was standing there crying. I know he heard me. The scene would leave a scar that would be with me for the rest of my life. It would be years before I ever saw him again. From this situation, I decided that I'd never respect any man that would put his hands on a woman. It is belittling to the definition of what is to be manly and has no place in the character of a man. It is the definition of a coward. After many years of nowhere, he showed up one day with a bike that he had purchased for me. I really was not sure what he was trying to do. My mom, nothing to do with this man, and she didn't want him a part of her life or mine. I kept saying to myself, what is this guy trying to do? Then, one of the most surprising things took place. He smooth talked my grandmother into letting him stay a few days at the family house. I couldn't believe it. I was much older at this time, and I thought Grandma was crazy for letting him stay. But I discovered her reason later that night. I was spending the night over her house, and it was about 9:30 p.m. or so on the weekend. I was outside on the block hanging with the other kids in front of her house. Then all of a sudden, I hear this man calling my name. It was my dad saying, Marvell, Marvell, come into the house. I was surprised by this because normally I stayed out late on the weekends with no problems. But he kept calling me to come into the house, And then the last call out, he threatened to whoop me if I didn't. The other kids started making fun of me, and I was embarrassed. I said to myself, who does this guy think he is? He has never been in my life to tell me what to do. I proceeded into the house and protested. I had no intentions of coming in early. I let him know that I wanted to stay out longer and I did not want to come in the house right now. Then out of nowhere, he smacked me. I was shocked. I ran to my grandma, who was in the next room, and said, "This dude hit me. This dude hit me." Then while the whole flip upside down thing occurred, I never expected to happen. She pushed me onto the floor out of her bed and said, "Get him." I couldn't believe it. To me, this was the greatest sense of betrayal. I laid on the floor, looked at her in amazement, and I couldn't speak. Then my dad came into the room, grabbed me by the arm, and escorted me back to where I was to sleep that night. I was helpless and couldn't do anything about it. I learned a very important lesson that night as I realized that I was not in control of the situation. I know that my grandmother wasn't trying to hurt me. Instead, she was trying to teach me the importance of showing respect to those in position of authority. This man had authority over me. Grandma believed in the Bible and reminded me that children are to be obedient to their parents and are to honor their father and their mother because it means a child's life. However, I had developed a hatred for this man. I wanted him to die for the pain he caused my mom and I. I had condemned my dad and didn't even know it at the time. But Grandma knew it. So she consented to allow this man back into my life to teach me a lesson. She was trying to save me from a dark-hearted, filled with hatred so that I could gain God's approval. I learned this over a period of time, and after a series of events, I did recover. Dad stayed for a little bit, but as time passed, this started to unfold. I chose to cooperate with my grandmother's wishes and to give whatever this was an opportunity. One day, Dad started to cry in my presence because he knew I didn't trust him. I was withdrawn from him, and as he cried, I looked for a distance. However, I felt a sudden sadness and started fighting against myself not to care about his tears, recalling that this was the guy that smacked me and the guy that hurt my mom. I was haunted by the nightmare he caused me to have every night. I didn't agree with Dad's actions, and I didn't like him as a person, but I learned that I had to show him honor because it was something owed to him. But deep inside, I rejected him because I was disappointed in him. He had not earned my respect, and not too long from this time, the bike he bought me was gone. I learned that he took it and sold it to someone when I wasn't around. It didn't surprise me at all, really, because I was expecting him to do something bad. I made it a point to approach him about it and he gave me some lame excuse saying he needed it. When he needed it for what was not discussed, but it was strange to me that a man would take his child gift away to get something for himself. I was old enough to know drugs or a payment of a debt was involved. Then one day, he just disappeared, and years went by before I ever saw him again. Did Grandma succeed in her endeavor? I'll revisit that later.